Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this webinar this morning on Connecticut Councils of Government, COGs, and the Connecticut Energy Network. We're really grateful for all of you attending today. I think this is an important meeting. Just a quick intro to the organizers, People's Action for Clean Energy. I am a part, has been at this mission of 100% renewable power in Connecticut for a long time, since the early 70s. In fact, I haven't been part of it for that whole time, but we are, it's been going on half a century we've been working at this. We work at the town level. We develop viable plans for individual towns to move to 100% renewable energy. And then with us is our very valuable partner, the CTEN Energy Network. You're going to hear later in this program from Patrice Gillespie. The CTEN Energy Network is coordinated by Clean Water Action. Actually, I can see that Ann Hulick, who leads that up, just joined us. Welcome, Ann. As you're going to hear in more detail, the Connecticut Energy Network is a group of groups with local volunteer committees, sustainability teams, working for their own towns on energy performance and health benefits. And speaking for both of the organizers today, we're really excited at the prospect of working with COGs. And this is our agenda for today. I'm going to do a very brief flyover just so people can orientate themselves as to what's going to happen. Our goal today is really very basically an introduction of these two groups. There are 9 COGs representing all 169 towns in Connecticut. We've found, even in the process of preparing this webinar today, we've found lots of areas where we think we on the energy network side of things can benefit from more association with the COGs. And we're presumptuous enough to think that the COGs could benefit by association and working with us. We're going to explore some of those ways of working together. Our speakers will touch on that. And at the end, we're going to have a question and answer period, question, answer, and discussion period, where we're going to try to flesh those things out. We have 2 wonderful speakers today representing 2 of the COGs. As I said, there are actually 9 COGs. We've learned how different they are, how differently they're staffed, how different challenges they have because of the towns that they serve. So in the time we have, with the speakers we have, there are going to be lots of questions that we won't be able to answer today, but we think we can start to ask and start to answer them. So please, questions, keep them coming into the chat. After this brief introduction by me, we're going to have our speakers from the Councils of Government. Critine O'Neill represents the Naugatuck Valley COG, and she's going to actually accomplish 2 things. She's going to give us, I'll call it the thumbnail elevator speech, 100,000-foot view, choose your analogy of what COGs are and what they do. Then she's going to give us a little bit deeper dive into what she does for the Naugatuck Valley COG. And we're intrigued to have her because of her focus on energy and waste. Once Critine has laid that groundwork, we're going to hear from Elizabeth Sanderson in the Capital Region COG. She works on the bipartisan infrastructure law and is also going to give us different ways to think about and to connect to the Capital Region COG. We hope to generalize her remarks to the rest of the state. After these 2 speakers, we're going to have a brief question and answer coming out of the chat, and then we'll turn it over to Patrice Gillespie, who will give us an introduction to the Connecticut Energy Network. Many of us on the call today on the webinar are familiar with the Connecticut Energy Network. However, we're really pleased to see that we have a good number of representatives from the COGs themselves. So we feel it's important that we introduce ourselves to the COGs. Who are we and what do we do? At that point, the presentations per se will end. We'll open it up to questions and answers. Again, we'll use the chat, and depending on how many folks we have, we may be able to open the floor up to verbal question and answers. But we really hope to leave here with some next steps on how we can work together. Quick introduction of both speakers. Critine O'Neill up next, an environmental planner with the Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments. She works on sustainable waste management, land and water protection, and of course, energy. She got her master's at UConn and has held environmental positions across 3 states. I've personally formed an opinion that she's actually in the Energy Witness Relocation Program, and that's why she moves state to state. So I would ask all of you to not reveal her location because it's important we keep her quiet. Following Critine will be Elizabeth Sanderson. You can see she's a bipartisan infrastructure law coordinator and principal program manager to Capital Region Council of Governments, Capital Region COG. She has a lot of credentials after her name. She's a certified planner, professional landscape architect. A little bit intimidating to me. She's a zoning enforcement official. I'm not sure I want to get sideways with her. Creates and implements regional plans that bring her meaningful, sustainable, and equitable change to the capital region. And she also received a degree from UConn. So UConn is well represented here today. I'll just note that UConn is in the Capital Region COG. And I'm going to stop sharing and ask Critine to start sharing.
All righty. Let's see if I get this. Okay, wonderful. Bernie, thank you so much for the introduction. I hope everybody can hear me okay. My name is Critine O'Neill. I'm an environmental planner with the Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments, and I am so excited to be talking about one of my favorite topics today. So as Bernie mentioned, we're going to start out by discussing what a COG is. We are a creature of the state. We are derive our authority from state statute. You can see here the references, section 4, 124I through P, goes through all the sort of provisions that give us our power. But an easier way to understand it is that we are empowered or enabled by statute to do a lot of things, but we aren't required to do many things. We are an organization that exists from a voluntary association of municipalities. So I know a lot of people would probably associate regional government with something like a county government, but that's not necessarily the case here. So think of it this way, where the decision makers, our board, is made up of the chief elected officials, which we'll refer to as CEOs, but that basically means the chair of the town council or the mayor or the first select person. They're the ones that come together with at these monthly meetings and are the decision-making body. And we are empowered to do several things to support them. We can provide mapping services. We can look into land use or coordinating infrastructure. We do a lot of planning for transportation. That may be one of our biggest functions as a COG because we are also MPOs or metropolitan planning organizations. That is a creature of the federal government, and that's where we get a lot of our funding. If you think about it, it makes sense because transportation by its very nature is the most regional thing ever. It can't stay within a town, or it's not really transportation. It has to extend beyond town borders. And of course, things like environment are also, the watershed is not going to neatly fit into our political boundaries. So these are some of the topics we cover, and we are empowered from state and federal government to do that. But COGs are not necessarily the same as municipal or state governments, and it's not quite as easy to fit them into that same box. So levying taxes, if you think of government, that's one of their primary functions. That's how they fund themselves. COGs don't levy taxes. We can get fees from municipalities who could tax their residents for that. We also don't make laws. So you wouldn't hear of a regional ordinance. It comes from the state or from the municipality. And it's also pretty unusual for COGs to hold land or assets. So you don't really go to a regional park, you go to a state park or your town park. So even though we aren't what you would technically think of when you think of how a unit of government functions. We provide a really, really important service to the other pieces of government. We can save taxpayer money by economies of scale, and that's a huge thing that we do, right? We're able to come together, and we'll see some examples of this a little bit later, but come together and do maybe one hiring or procurement process instead of 4 to get a contractor to work on projects in 4 separate towns. We're also a midpoint between the government and the municipality, or sorry, state government and the municipalities. We have 1 state government, and we have 169 municipalities. It's not always easy to reach those, all those municipalities with the project. So going through the COGs is a really effective way. And of course, we act as adjunct staff for municipalities. So let's say a smaller town that may not have the resources of a larger town wants to apply for a grant. They're busy putting out fires and dealing with, on the shoestring budget with their bit of staff. A COG can jump in and say, hey, if you need a little extra help with this, we're here to support you. To give a few examples of what regional planning looks like, I just wanted to show this map. This sort of demonstrates, first of all, where the COGs are. You can maybe find yourself there and see where you fall. I'll start with an example from my COG. So the Naugatuck Valley COG has a regional brownfield partnership. It actually extends beyond the boundaries of our COG, but the general idea is that we get these big federal grants from the EPA, and we subgrant them out to municipalities. So for instance, imagine if, let's say, a smaller city like Ansonia was going up against a huge city with a population of over 1 million, like in Chicago or Detroit, to try to get brownfields money. It would not be competitive. But when the Naugatuck Valley applies, we're representing 450,000 people, and suddenly we're a lot more competitive, and then we can subgrant. And brownfields, to clarify, are contaminated properties that need cleaning up, and we have a strong industrial history here. CROG, which you'll be hearing from a little later, has a regional purchasing council. If you have ever been through the municipal budgeting and purchasing process, it is so much paperwork. You don't want to go through any more of that than you have to. Here, there have over 100 different agencies, including town governments, school boards, or even town subcommittees that they do purchasing for. And my favorite, and perhaps the cutest, is the Northeast Council of Governments has regionalized animal services for 20+ towns. So they do the adoption and animal control, which saves the towns a lot of effort and money. But let's get into the energy stuff, because that's why we're here. So I'm going to be looking at our Council of Governments, Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments. Our largest city is Waterbury. You can see some interesting stats about us down here. And we cover what most people traditionally think of as the Naugatuck Valley, with Ansonia, Derby, Seymour, up through Naugatuck and Waterbury. We also have Bristol, a fairly large city, and we extend a little bit into the sort of Litchfield area as well. So the big things that COGs work on aren't always energy itself, but can be energy adjacent. So transportation is a great example. Like I said, we get the federal money for transportation. And a big part of transportation work is trying to make things more energy efficient. We want to put in EV infrastructure. We want to reduce the vehicle miles traveled, and in that way save fuel. We want to reduce idling at traffic lights, things like that. Another big one that we work with is land use. And I'm sure that's a no-brainer. Many people here understand that land use and patterns of development, and even something as sort of granular as the permitting process, can have a big impact on renewable energy installations, energy efficiency, and trying to avoid that suburban sprawl, and instead having transit-oriented development so we can keep our energy and our infrastructure concentrated. And my big thing that I spend most of my time on here as an environmental planner is the waste crisis. We know that waste and energy are very, very tied up in each other. Not just talking about something like waste to energy plants, but thinking about the fact that now Connecticut ships 40% of its waste out of state. And when we say out of state, we don't mean just over the border to New York and Massachusetts. We're talking about regularly sending trash to Pennsylvania and Ohio. And think about all the fuel that uses. So really interesting stuff. But specifically, since I've gotten here, I have a really special interest in energy, and we've been working on some energy specific projects. So I wanted to go into that. We'll start with planning. So some of you may be familiar with municipal plans of conservation and development, referred to as POCDs. What you may not know is that your region has one, and so does your state. So NVCOG has actually 3 former plans, because in 2015 there was a big COG reorganization. We originally, when county government was abolished in about 1960, several different regional planning organizations cropped up. We ended up with 15 for a while, and now we've consolidated down to 9. But as a result of that reorganization, NVCOG has never actually made our regional POCD as NVCOG. So this is required by statute. We update it every 10 years. We've got to check to make sure it's consistent with the municipal and state plans. But the idea of a POCD, if you're not familiar, is it's a sort of aspirational narrative about how you see your town 10 years from now, where you want to build, where you don't want to build, and strategic planning for things like infrastructure, housing, that sort of thing. So let's talk about energy in the POCD. So I know that PACE and probably many people on here have advocated to get energy as a topic in your local POCD. But it's not easy. A lot of times you end up seeing the sort of copied and pasted from Wikipedia thing about energy is important. We want to keep costs down. Renewables are good. And that's maybe not meaningful enough planning to make a difference. So why should we talk about it on the regional level if we're not talking about it on the local level? Well, first of all, it does specifically say in the statutes that regional plans may encourage energy efficient patterns of development and encourage the use of renewable forms of energy and energy conservation. So obviously, our lawmakers thought it was important that we consider it. And I found this quote in Wolcott's municipal POCD. I just thought this was a really great way to sort of bring it home. It says, is energy a local issue? Is energy used locally and our emissions produced locally? Do local budgets contain funds to heat and cool municipal buildings, power municipal computers, faxes and lights, and fuel municipal vehicles? One needs only to look at the price of the fuel pump edging ever higher to admit energy conservation is necessary, if for no other reason than to keep costs in check. Now, of course, tree huggers like us probably know there are lots of other reasons besides just the cost, but that is also extremely important and worth planning for. So we are in the process of writing our regional plan of conservation and development. We have sort of 2 parts to it. We have an existing conditions report, and then we have the plan itself. So I called dibs on the energy section, and I have had a blast writing it and looking into this region. You can see how I've laid it out here, looking at energy production, where are we getting our energy from in the region, energy sources, how is the energy being used, what specific materials are we using for it, and then the social and sort of societal aspects of it. How are people affected by energy? Things like pollution and climate change, or cost effectiveness. And so as I was going along writing this, I ran into something that you may have all experienced yourself. There's a lot of data on the state level and especially on the federal level about energy, but it is really hard to find stuff on the municipal level. And so, you know, it's great to sit on a webinar and say, talk about energy at the local level, but if you don't have the data, how are you going to do that? We really need to understand how we're using energy at the local level. And I want to give a huge shout out to PACE, because this is one of their ongoing projects, is trying to find and like tabulate that data to make it meaningful on the municipal level. So I really appreciate that. And I hope that we'll have an announcement about the launch of that soon, and that we can access this more granular data. So I was talking about the existing conditions report before. We're going to be getting into the plan itself, and I'm really excited It's not been written yet, but I'm looking forward to drafting it and putting some real goals in there about energy in our region. Next, we'll talk about training. Training is a huge function of the COGs. We often do that because it's a very efficient way to get our municipal staff trained, is regionally. So on a quarterly basis, we have these sustainability forums. And this past winter, we thought energy efficiency is a great topic to cover. It ended up being super topical because we had that huge spike in costs due to the natural gas supply chain issues. And so we had Operation Fuel, we had Connecticut DEEP, and we had Eversource come in and speak to us. We had about 30 attendees, most of which were municipal staff, but we also had people from nonprofits and some members of the community, and let them know about opportunities to support low-income households and energy efficiency programs here in Connecticut and in our region. So that's another thing, we try to train people up. We also want to make sure that municipalities are following best practices when it comes to renewable energy. We thought the best way to do that was through SolSmart. You may have heard of SolSmart before, but if you haven't, you might be a bit more familiar with Sustainable CT. It works very much the same. So this is a Department of Energy on the federal level funded program. You basically have a menu of actions that you can take either as a town or as a regional organization that are designed to sort of promote and encourage people to adopt solar. You get points for each action, and at a certain point threshold, you are designated bronze, silver, or gold. So we took obviously the regional route, and we did a whole bunch of actions, and we earned bronze status. And once we publish our regional POCD, we will upgrade to silver. So that's super exciting. Here's what those actions look like. We trained municipal staff. So in addition to that energy efficiency one, we did some more technical trainings about permitting and building inspections for solar. We went to community events like Earth Days and the Bristol Mum Festival and things like that, and promoted solar there. We created this awesome online landing page that I encourage you to check it out. It's our nvcogct.gov/solar. We've got a whole bunch of resources, including sector specific. If you want to build solar on a brownfield, if you want to put it in the right of way, all this documentation there. We have a very cool regional capacity map that looks at how much solar is installed in our region by town and also per capita. And finally, those solar goals in our RPOCD. Extremely unflattering picture of me here with the SolSmart Bronze Award, but visual proof that we did receive it. And of course, thanks to our executive director, that's Rick Dunn, our senior regional planner, Aaron, and our community engagement manager, Desra. And finally, there's a lot more COGS could be doing with energy, and that's what I think everyone's excited about today. So there's a lot of potential. The thing to remember is that our decision makers, as we talked about before, are the CEOs, our municipal leaders, and we need to listen to what they want from us. However, here are some examples of things we can do. So we can write or partner on grants for renewable energy or efficiency programs. We can do outreach campaigns either through social media or, like we said before, tabling at events. We can create guidance and resources. So let's say that we have a number of zoning officers that come to us and say, look, these people keep wanting to put, ground mounted solar in their backyard, and we don't really understand how that's going to affect water quality. We're a little worried about that. Can you give us some guidance? And so we could do the research on the COG level, create a resource for them to, maybe with FAQs or something. Another thing is plans. We're planners. We love plans and studies and things like that. So if they're looking to make a decarbonization plan, or they're looking to combat climate change, we can help with that. And then finally, some technical assistance. We could get people in the COG LEED certified, or get an engineer on the COG team and provide that assistance when they're, creating municipal buildings. And so finally, I want to finish up with a couple of examples of how COGs could amp up, little energy joke, our energy work. And just a quick note that these examples are just meant to be illustrative. And we're not necessarily saying like, oh, call up your COG planner today, they'll get this started for you, because COGs, like municipal governments, we have a tight budget and we're busy with other things. And of course, everything is going to go through those municipal leaders. So here's one example. PACE has this awesome program called 100% CT. In this program, they run a baseline energy analysis for the town and then help that town develop an energy plan, which is an awesome service. But are all the towns taking advantage of it? Probably not. And that's maybe for a few reasons. Maybe they don't know that this service is available. And another thing is governments are understandably wary of working with special interest groups because they want to be fair and transparent about that. But with COGS, we love partnering with our community groups. And we have maybe a little more time and resources to vet these groups and to have those conversations and say, you know what, I've looked into this and this is a valuable service for our towns. So an example here would be a COG partnering with PACE to host a webinar or workshop and inviting those municipal staff members who might be interested in this service. Municipalities trust their COGs, they listen to their COGs, and it's probably better than cold calling this town and saying, hey, I'm from PACE, we have this service for you, as opposed to the COG coming in and saying, we're putting on this presentation so you could learn something about the program. We can also offer things like meeting space. We could design the flyer for it. We could advertise it on our social media, things like that. Here's another example. We are big grant writers over here. We are living in a pretty amazing era right now when it comes to federal funds for energy infrastructure. The Biden administration has a huge focus on getting money, especially to environmental justice communities. And Connecticut should be grabbing that money and making sure it comes to us and get our fair share. COGS can help with that. We write a lot of grants, and we have different ways we can do this. We could ghost write it for a town and have the town just put their name on it. We could partner with the town and sort of do a half and half thing, or we could write a regional grant. And so just as an example, imagine that Bristol, Plymouth, and Wolcott all want to get heat pumps. Is it more efficient for each of them to write a separate grant, or for a COG to write a single regional grant with help and support from those towns to get that funding? It saves money, it saves time, and it's more competitive. But again, Bristol, Plymouth, and Wolcott would have to want that and say, yes, this is a good use of our time, and that we have the resources at our town level to carry it out. Our third example is your good idea. So although we don't work necessarily directly with residents on a regular basis, we do, like I said, work with community groups. And we love putting good ideas in front of our CEOs. So a huge thank you to PACE for inviting us to talk, and to the Connecticut Energy Network. We want to work with you. We want to deliver good, energy work for our municipalities. I really appreciate your time. I hope this has sparked a couple ideas within you, and that's my information. You can always feel free to call me or reach out, and I'm happy to turn it back over to Bernie and the crew.
Christine, thank you so much. That was, I have to say, I got chills at several points during your presentation. So I either have COVID or you did a good job. One of those.
Thank you.
There's one question that I want to put to you and Elizabeth. So I'm going to talk about COG purchasing councils get involved with solar procurements, but I want to wait till Elizabeth talks. I did have one question that came from Marty Mador. Well, it was actually a statement. He said, county government ended in 1960. And I think that's a perspective that's valuable for us in Connecticut. There's a lot of things to be proud about being here in Connecticut, but we are different than a lot of other states in our lack of county government. And I wonder, I know you actually did some of your graduate work on this. So could you just give us sort of a thumbnail on counties and what happened to us in 1960?
Yeah, absolutely. So the idea of county government, and that was sort of what I was hinting at the beginning, is when you think of county government, you think about a government that could tax you, that has county parks or county services, and that could make laws or ordinances that apply to the whole county. We don't have that. We are support organizations. We uplift our municipalities and we do work for them. So with the county government abolished in the 60s, I think what that really represents is, and I'm sure all of you know this, Connecticut has a really strong home rule tradition. We love local control, and sometimes a blessing, sometimes a curse. But I think that is probably what led to the county government's ending. But in that absence, we realized we still need like an intermediary step between 169 towns and one state government. And so these regional planning organizations emerged, and also especially to get that transportation money coming in from the federal government and to do that transportation planning, because like we said, there are some issues that are just beyond municipal, with transportation being one of them. And I have a great website if you're interested more on the history that I can pop into the chat here that talks about regional planning in Connecticut. It's super interesting. So I will do that right now.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And as in the course of working with you and Elizabeth, who will be up in a second, I've sort of formed this mental image of 169 gopher holes, and the CT Energy Network. We have done great work in our respective gopher holes. And I think as I'm listening to you talk, and as I've sort of heard the early version of what Elizabeth's saying, I just have this mental image of all of us gophers on this call poking our head up and starting to look around and see what else is out surrounding our particular little gopher hole. And I happen to like gophers, so that's a positive analogy. Elizabeth, before I say any more foolish things, I would ask you to maybe share your slides and take us through your COG a little bit and what you're doing there.
Yes, happy to get started here. Thank you both to Bernie and Deb for inviting me on this journey here, as well as Patrice Gillespie for this opportunity, and also to Chritine for giving that great overview of the COGs and a lens view of what NVCOG is doing on the energy work. Very inspiring. So my goal here is to just identify ways that CROG we may be able to connect and get out of the gopher hole and work together with CROG and the Connecticut Energy Network and PACE. So just a quick overview of the Capital Region Council of Governments, which we call CROG. Second C is silent. We're 1,000 square miles, just over 1,000 square miles in north central Connecticut, including the capital city, Hartford. 38 member towns in the region with a population of just under 1 million. But the communities have been collaborating for over 40 years, more like 50, I'm thinking, on a wide range of projects that benefit the towns individually, as well as the region as a whole. Just an overview of some of the, I'll say, departments or focus areas that CROG has. We have our Regional Planning and Development Department, supports regional planning, economic development, brownfields remediation, and funding. There's a revolving loan fund program with EPA that is ongoing in our planning department. And as well as looking into the regional planning plan of conservation and development, the POCD, and the regional natural hazard mitigation plan. And both of those plans are in the process of being updated. So I think my purpose here of just doing this overview of what we do is to try to identify areas and opportunities where we may be able to support each other and partner and provide technical assistance to you, as well as incorporate some of the ideas that you may have and that we can bring forth to member towns. We are responsive to our member towns, so responsive and accountable. So it's important to get the buy-in from the municipal leaders as well, and as Chritine mentioned. So another department that we have is the transportation planning that coordinates, supports the region's metropolitan planning organization, CROG. Our boundary is consistent with our MPO. That's not always the case with some COGs. Sometimes the boundaries don't quite align. So, but for CROG, we are the same boundary as the Metropolitan Planning Organization, MPO, which receives the federal funding for Federal Highway Administration and USDOT. We also have our LOTSIP program, Local Transportation Capital Improvement Program, and other transportation plans, studies, and projects. And Public Safety and Homeland Security is another division or department, and coordinates with the state DEMIS, Department of Emergency Management, Homeland Security. Also public health projects, including emergency and hospital preparedness. We provide regional services and council administration, and shared services for the municipalities, and then municipal services, which is the department that runs the Capital Region Purchasing Council, also known as the EZIQC program that Christine mentioned. And I sent a little message to the coordinator for that program to see if there's a current solar procurement, something set up already. And I haven't heard back, but I will definitely keep tabs on that question. So municipal services also does the crumbling foundations testing programs, such some of you may be aware of, in addition to the shared services. Okay, and just a note on teamwork. So the theme, I think, here we're coming together today and talking about, as a first step of how we can potentially, build partnerships, relationships, and create a team towards our common mission, and direct individual accomplishments toward organizational objectives, so we can better be prepared to attain our uncommon results. So I think this was Andrew Carnegie talking about teamwork, and I think it still resonates with what we're trying to accomplish as a region. So one of the focuses of my work at CROG is reviewing funding opportunities offered through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, the BIL or bill, also known as the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, IIJA. So it's a long name for the infrastructure money that was approved and through the act enacted in November 2021 it's a 5-year term on that act. We are in year 2 now. So part of the work that I'm doing is connecting the federal programs that are available with local projects to optimize opportunities to plan and implement and to achieve this meaningful change in our region. So kind of created on our website started a sort of just a summary of the notices of funding opportunities or requests for applications that have come out through the various federal agencies. So U.S. Department of Transportation, some of the energy related programs are U.S. DOT has their charging and fueling infrastructure discretionary grant program. And that's really focused on alternative fuel to gasoline for promoting electric vehicles and really electrifying our transportation system. The Department of Energy had released the Renew America Schools program, as well as the Building Energy Codes program. And those were really meant to create a sustainable, resilient infrastructure, building infrastructure. So more energy efficient components. And the third or, really fourth and fifth programs to highlight are the Environmental Protection Agency Solid Waste Infrastructure for Recycling, the SWIFR, as well as the Recycling Education and Outreach programs that were released in that first year of BIL. And we're tracking these as well as they anticipate coming out. Some programs are anticipated to come out every year with, potentially additional funding than the year one, like happened with one of the programs that we're working on, where if they didn't spend all of the funding in the first year, if they're able to carry it over into subsequent years. So if the news isn't getting out about these programs fast enough, there's hope that in the following years we can work together to create competitive and applications. The other program that CROG has just submitted earlier this week is the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant Program, the Hartford MSA, including some of the other soft edges, like because there's no boundaries to air pollution, similar to watersheds. So we've submitted an application to the EPA for the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant Program, and this would allow CROG and RiverCog to work together on behalf of the Hartford MSA and these adjacent towns to create a priority climate action plan, which will be coming out, it's coming due in March of 2024, as well as a comprehensive climate action plan, which would be in the later following years. So there's an opportunity here for collaboration. There's, the hope is to get a task force or advisory commission or council to put together these plans, and the plans will then serve for years to come as the basis for applying for implementation grant funding. That this program is created out of the Inflation Reduction Act, and there are expecting additional funding programs to be create different pots of money available to be used to implement the items contained in these plans. So there's a good opportunity to collaborate and work together on this, and the goal is to decarbonize and reduce pollution, especially the greenhouse gas emissions. Another opportunity for collaboration and input is the Plan of Conservation and Development. And as I mentioned, CROG is starting the public surveys are out for this to collect input from mostly residents within the member towns to gauge what's missing from the POCD and where we want to go over the next 10 years. What do we want to be in the next 10 years, and where do we want development, and what do we want to conserve? So this is a QR code to you can pull up the survey. Also in the slides that you'll receive, there's a PDF of the slides. These are hyperlinks too, so you can access this later as well. But it's an opportunity to get involved in this planning process for a long term. And the more that we can put into our plans, the better fuel and fodder we have of achieving future funding for implementation. So the first step is going to be planning, and if we can point to all of these plans that, yes, here it is, this is what we said we were going to do, and now we're applying for the funding to get that done, that's going to really help make our applications competitive for these federal funding programs while they're here. And hopefully they will continue, but they're, as much in life, nothing is guaranteed. Also wanted to just highlight our social engagement. We have our LinkedIn page, we have a Facebook page, Twitter account, as well as a YouTube channel. And so these are just some examples of some of the information that is, shared on our social media, and I would encourage you to connect with us there. We also issue the CROG Connection, a monthly newsletter. So if you're able, want to track any of our work, you can join that and subscribe to that we can connect there as well. And just as an example of our support, on the right side is our a post from when the town of Coventry had opened their anaerobic digester. So the conversion of organic waste into energy, farm waste and food waste. So it's a really exciting project for the region and something that others are interested in doing. So a great model. I'm glad to be, you know, to have Coventry part of that CROG region doing this work. So again, you know, next transitioning is our next transitioning to our next steps, and really coming together here is just the beginning. And you know, the goal now is to keep together and work together to achieve success. So a few suggestions for our next steps. We really want to generate synergy so we can achieve more. So maybe really organizationally look at vision, mission, goals, and actions, identifying differences and where we have commonalities, and then decide, you know, does it make sense for us to join forces or divide and conquer? And as a regional planner, I'm always on the side of join forces, but I can also see where there might be benefits to, you know, with staffing and capacity issues in both organizations, or, you know, not everybody can do everything all at once. That divide and conquer could also be effective. But we also can promote each other's work. We can repost social media on each other's pages and stay connected with our each newsletters and workshops and training programs. I love that, you know, hearing about the training programs offered by each of the organizations here today. And CROG, we are actually working on preparing a workshop for the fall on electric vehicle charging. So that's something, you know, hope to get more concrete information out over the summer. But just another way we can work collaboratively. And then also increasing education about the data and science behind climate resiliency and sustainability issues, as a way to kind of make this a nonpartisan issue. If it's backed in science, building consensus throughout the region for these initiatives and projects, because that's what's important to us. As we mentioned, you know, we are representatives of the member towns. And then lastly, just, you know, finding and receiving the funding to accomplish the projects and goals. And so I'm just going to share my contact information. And if you have a project that you're seeking funding for, you feel free to send me information about that, and I can add it to, you know, this growing list of potential projects that we need funds for, and then match it up with the available programs as they come out. It's kind of a different approach than trying to fit a project to the grant program, or, you know, chasing grants. It's more about, we have a project and here we're going to identify the program that best fits that, and you know, work on assembling the capital stack for that. So these are all hyperlinks, the Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and then a link to subscribe to the CROG Connection, as well as, again, the public survey for the POCD. And thank you again for this opportunity, and look forward to connecting with everybody.
Elizabeth, thank you very much. In particular, I love your last quote. I think I speak for all of us. I think we do want to go fast, but more importantly, I think we want to go far. And I think both you and Chritine have given us a hope that we can work together and thereby go far. It's 11:52, so I just maybe take a couple questions. We got some great questions in the chat, and then once just a couple, and then we'll come back after we ask Patrice to do a discussion of the CTEN Energy Network. I I guess, could both of you talk a little bit about your transportation planning and work? It's probably a giant topic, so it's probably hard to talk about it a little, but a little flavor of what you do and what you don't do, and a sort of a specific example might be, could a single EPA school bus grant be written by two COGs? So on something like getting electric school buses, could COGs work together? So
Sure. So I'll just start real quick with EdVCOG. We do a ton of transportation work. I think the biggest way that comes to bear is through the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, which every MPO or Metropolitan Planning Organization needs to complete. But it's the transportation equivalent of the POCD, sort of. And another huge thing has to do with money. So there are a lot of funds that are available from the states and the feds for transportation improvements. So for instance, we have a LOTSIP program you may have heard of. I'm not going to remember but it's like local opportunities for transportation capital improvement projects or something along those lines. And the idea is that, again, millions of dollars come through the COGs, and we grant it out to towns that want to repave their streets or, create sidewalks or things like that. We also, I guess in the case of the EPA school bus grant, we don't usually, or at least our COG doesn't usually work with the school side of things so much. Between two COGs, I don't know if COGs have ever done a joint grant before, at least in my time, but if certainly several towns wanted to apply for a grant within a COG, yeah, absolutely, we would help write that grant, if we had the direction from the CEOs.
Wonderful.
And I would just say, each funding program has the notice of funding opportunity is what the USDOT, the terms they use, and has a list of eligible applicants. And a lot of the times that, a joint application is accepted. So it would depend on each program specifically. But I would say just because we haven't in the past done joint applications, there are, even for Safe Streets and Roads for All, which is one of the programs we're working with staff at EnVCOG on assembling an application on a regional, because the towns involved were just like roads don't stop at each town boundary. So there's opportunities for at least collaboration, if not, both lead or joint applicants on the same. There's some work being involved behind the scenes by both.
That's really helpful. Thank you both. There's more questions appearing in the chat. There's a great one from Wendy Murphy that I think we'll get to at the end. I invite Christine and Elizabeth to take a look at it in advance. I also am realizing we're going to need a glossary. You mentioned MSAs and MPOs. I think most of us know POCDs, but if it has a cousin in transportation, that's probably another thing. So maybe one of our follow-ups will be to get some of the lingo decoded and passed around. And again, time is short. Patrice, I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to show this wonderful picture of the CTEN Energy Network. See if Patrice is there. Are you there, Patrice?
Yeah, I'm in there.
You're in there.
And there are some of the people in that picture are in the participants list right now. So hats off to all of you for your tenacity. Right. So probably 2/3 of the people in the Zoom room right now are members of the Connecticut Energy Network. So I'm addressing maybe the newbies and also the people at the COG level and others who may not know exactly what the Connecticut Energy Network is and does. Next slide, please. So I'll let you read these. I wanted to say Bernie and I don't have very snazzy slides, but anyway, we have about 385 members. And most of them are volunteers on local energy commissions. You know, the listserv, I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute, started as in 2007, and we have dozens of groups across the state that are connected to us and to so much of what's going on in this state when it comes to sustainability and energy. Next slide, please. So we help each other, you know, we use this interactive listserv to teach one another things some of us just would never know otherwise. And we do all kinds of things. Let me see the next slide, please, Bernie, and we'll be specific about some of the things that our members do. You know, if there's something energy related happening in your town, it's probably because of one of us. We do Earth Day events and heat pump campaigns, car shows. The composting programs are really growing now, thanks to some of the colleagues I have here in Wilton. A Zero Waste Schools Coalition is spreading throughout the state and also into New York. You may all remember the Solarize programs that were run by Smart Power. There were dozens of campaigns across the state that encouraged residents to get solar panels on their roofs. Energy fairs, you know, there are great energy fairs happening that the public can attend and learn about sustainability. HES and HES-IE, I think we all know the wonderful Eversource programs on home energy audits that cut energy costs. But there's a similar program called the Small Business Energy Advantage Program. Here in Wilton, we orchestrated something with Eversource and were able to help local businesses cut their energy costs. One, what was it? The State Farm Insurance Office got new lighting and their electric bill went down by 74%. So it really makes a difference. So we've all, you know, tried to encourage our school boards and our boards of selectmen to button up our municipal buildings and our schools. The energy plans with greenhouse gas inventories was mentioned a little while ago. That's very cool. And our wonderful representative from the Ridgefield Action Committee for the Environment was one of the first people, Dwayne Escola, to do a greenhouse gas inventory using an ICLEI tool years and years ago. You know, it's a wonderful way to create a baseline and then track your progress over time. We do green speaker programs. We educate people on what's in and what's out on recycling. And we do no idling campaigns and more. So if any of you have something to report about something I've overlooked, you know, drop it in the chat. But you know, we're very busy. We're very busy and we love it. We can't stop doing this. This all started in 2007. And, you know, that was about the time when I realized I needed to do a career change. I needed to start working for Mother Nature. And I think that's about, you know, one of the things that drove many of us network members to do. We realized our planet was in trouble and we were going to put as much discretionary time as possible into climate change mitigation and adaptation. So let's see, I think I've sort of said my piece. I just think that we all want to truly transform the Connecticut energy scene and work with any community groups and hopefully we'll be working with the COGs now that we know more about you guys. Thank you so much, Elizabeth and Chritine for sharing the details of your good work.
Patrice, thank you so much. And there's a lot more we could say. One thing I just have to call out is that Patrice and Hulick have done of Clean Water have done a fantastic job keeping this group alive. We used to refer to Patrice as the den mother. I don't think she likes that anymore, so I'll just throw it out for nostalgia's sake. So I guess if I can, I'm just going to switch the view because I can't see anybody. I'd like to transition over to sort of a discussion and we have a discussion of how we can work together. And I think Patrice, Elizabeth, and Chritine each teed this up a little bit. So I would say for the folks, this is just meant to get something going. If you are working in a COG now, do you have a view into the towns that you serve, how they're working on energy and sustainability commissions? In other words, we know you go through the chief elected official. There was a question earlier that I'm guessing you're going to say, as part of that, you would have certainly engaged with the town manager in a place like West Hartford. So people, I'm pretty sure that you would say yes to that. But through those representatives and through your partners, do you have a view into the commissions in town? It might be that you have a broader view of our town than we do. I know in my town of West Hartford, we have a pedestrian and bicycle commission that's distinct from the Clean Energy Commission. We share agendas once in a while, but it's quite possible from the work that you've outlined that you guys actually know more about what's going on in transportation in West Hartford than I do. And so that's one thought, is just as a question. I think I saw before I shared slides there that Wendy is really asking, Wendy Murphy from the Northwest corner, and I know they have a very small COG. Do you have an intent or an ability, or said more directly, we would love it if you would, if you could find space, bandwidth to support your member towns in a way it looks like the Naugatuck Valley and the Capital Region COG do on energy and sustainability focus. I think there was discussion already about the opportunity for a COG to cross-pollinate and assist individual town initiatives. So to the extent that you get wind of something that makes sense, say, let's a recycling program or an EV charging program in a particular state, because you sit astride multiple towns, can you take that idea and say, hey, did you see what so-and-so is doing? So even though we in the CTEN Energy Network are going to stick our heads up and out of our gopher hole, we're asking you to kind of do the same thing. Can you help us? Can you look down and say, that gopher over there has a great idea. Let's share it with the other ones. And we've already talked a little bit about projects and grants. One thing that we cannot leave this session today without talking about what's the best way for us to connect. And Elizabeth, you gave us, and we'll obviously share social media and ways, but is there a monthly meeting? And we've already talked a little bit about the POCD. And I just going to stop talking after this, but we in the CTEN, do we even know what COG we're in? I know some of you do. I know some of you worked extensively. Well, at least one of you used to be a town official and thereby was a representative to the COG. But do you know what your COG, what activities are going on in your COG? Do you know how your town engages with that COG? And let's all agree that we're going to find out what the opportunities for us to participate are. Very quickly, and I'm not going to go into this at all, but just to let you know that it will be in the slide deck. There's some further resources. Deborah from PACE put together sort of a thumbnail, just went to each of the 9 COGs websites and took the high level subject areas. You saw this in more detail from Chritine and Elizabeth, but just to let you know that we've got the high level here. So you can get a sense. And for folks who are in the COGs, if you want to compare and contrast what your neighbors are doing, you could also use that. She also pulled together all the COG contacts. So I think this would be a good way for you to sort of reach out and probably on email. We don't want to burn out anybody's phone lines yet. And in reverse, we just wanted to make sure that we have 75 individual towns that are part of the Capital Region Energy Network, the Connecticut Energy Network. But we also have a steering committee. So we invite you to contact these guys, or if you know your direct person in your town, go ahead and contact them. But this is all meant to enable us as we leave this conversation to continue this conversation. Okay, great.
Bernie, could I ask you a favor?
Yes, indeed. Well, maybe.
I stopped talking because I thought it was going long, but maybe you could put up slide number 11 briefly for the COG people, so they would know some of the other things that we do. Thank you.
Yeah.
I thought it was, in reflecting about our accomplishments over the years, I realized, we helped design Sustainable Connecticut, and we even donated our original domain name to that organization. And when I just was thinking of the breadth of projects and campaigns that our membership has run, we just take ourselves for granted, and we just keep doing what we do and achieving amazing things. So it would be wonderful to partner with our neighboring municipalities through the COGs, and we would learn. We have a lot to learn, I know, as we execute our own plans of conservation development. So sorry, I sort of skipped over that, but I thought it was good for the COG people to see those other kinds of things we do. Thank you.
And Patrice, linguistically, the COG people, I've been trying to think, what can I call these people? Can I call them Cogdalites? But that didn't fit. So another takeaway might be, what do we call these COG people?
Yeah, right.
I can see I've got lots of messages here. Anybody that's kept ahead of the chat, by all means, jump in. But I want to go to Wendy Murphy out in the northwest corner. Really asks, right now in the CTEN, and Wendy is a quintessential case of this in the little town of Kent. She's had some great helpers, but she would love, I think it's fair to say, if she could tap into somebody that was a hub of energy and waste reduction information, so that she could be more of a transmitter than becoming a subject matter expert. I know that that's a big deal, because that's expanding the footprint of a COG if you don't already have what the two COGs that spoke today do. But maybe if we just have a little speculation, is that something you think we can do, especially now that we have all the grant funding coming down, some of it aimed at capacity building, so we could potentially add staff? Is that something you think?
Yeah, Wendy, that's a really good question. I will say, I think it's way more likely to find that for waste reduction than for energy, and here's why. Energy, as we've sort of briefly mentioned, is not a huge topic for conversation at the local level. They'll sign up to buy their energy, usually they'll go with the provider of last resort. And that's really it. They might do some energy efficiency programs to save some money, but towns don't deal with energy issues on a regular basis. It's not what we talk, at least, again, I'm just talking from my own experience, but at our meetings, we don't talk about energy. It's not a concern that gets brought up to us unless there's a specific grant opportunity that they're looking at. However, waste is a huge issue. And as the waste crisis continues, it's pushing on municipal budgets in a very big way. And so that they are coming to us, they do have questions for us. And so I'll say, at least in NVCOG, I do have a master's in energy management. I am happy to be that repository of information and share what I can, but I don't know that it's, I'm just not totally sure how much of a priority it is at the local level, which heavily impacts whether or not it's a priority at the COG level. I know that's probably not the answer you want to hear, but that's why you should move to the Naugatuck Valley. So this beautiful place where I can be happy to serve you.
Well, there's going to be a mass migration. There's no doubt. I will say, not to take us too far afield, but Ann Hewlett's Clean Water Action, Clean Water Fund is all about waste reduction and strategies. So there's even though this is the energy network discussion today, as you coined the term energy adjacent, and waste is energy adjacent. I think it's fair to say. Most of us, if our first love is energy, our second is waste reduction. So, and I will say,
I would just, thank you, Bernie. Can I just jump in and say, I'd love to just, I don't want to usurp the focus of this call because we really are about energy and climate, but it is all linked together, as you pointed out, Christine, when you talk about us shipping, these millions of pounds of waste out to Pennsylvania and Ohio currently, we really have to think about zero waste initiatives. And, that's not going to solve every waste challenge that we have, but there's a lot of innovation in going back to reusables. And we're currently working with 10 Middletown schools to shift them back to reusable serviceware. That is going to save the school district in Middletown thousands of dollars every year. So I'd love to talk with you more about these issues offline and some innovative solutions, because I completely understand. I hear this in my own town, that waste is kind of, taken over as a top priority because of the closing of the incinerator in Hartford and increased tipping fees, et cetera. So, but back to energy.
and good comment. And I think, Christine, you did a great job of saying that the trash crisis, when you take 40 tons and drive it, I don't know, 200 miles out of our state in great big trucks, that's energy, and that's greenhouse gas out the wazoo, as they would say. So they are intimately related. And I'm going to take your comment as right now as a challenge to the CTEN Energy Network, that it sounds like we towns have not done a good job of elevating energy as something that our towns care about. There's a great comment from Dana Mowry, who works for Eversource, and we're seeing this more and more, that both Eversource and UI do lots of outreach. I know they work in our town. We've had representatives come and talk about saving the municipality energy, as well as the business community and the residential community. So as some of the plans that Patrice sort of outlined on that slide of what we do, Catherine Deviney, who's our West Hartford energy specialist, makes the point that the town typically is, if energy is $1, the town and schools might be a nickel of that dollar. It's really the residents and the business communities, which aren't natural and direct constituents, perhaps represented by the people, your CEOs, but indirectly, I think that they are. And so to the extent that we can leverage that expertise and lower bills on energy so that people can pay their trash bills, I think that would be a good thing. Just an offer from Deb that to the extent that COGs or other towns have energy related events or news, you can go ahead and send it to the CTEN Energy Network and paste. We have a newsletter. Peter Millman, who is on here, collates the green energy news every Friday. There's opportunity to announce events and get articles posted there. So by all means, and we have the ability to electronically push events out to people's calendars. So we can help in the dissemination of that knowledge, please. One other question, okay, from Christine Feely is the energy adjacent topic. Is there a toolkit that's adoptable for a no idling campaign? And the answer has to be yes. I'm going to guess that at the town level, like in Wilton, I know has an active no idling campaign, but at the COG level, is there anything that that would sort of facilitate a no idling campaign to the member towns?
I replied or tried to reply to her her question. Deep has a webpage with some resources. They have a little myth busting video about idling that's kind of cute, like stylized like the Mythbusters show. And I think a few posters that you can request. It's mostly geared towards schools, and it's more like outreach than like creating a plan. But I put those links there for her if she's interested. I don't know that we certainly NBCOG has something like that on the regional level.
Thank you.
Yeah, nothing was coming to my mind on that as a toolkit that CROG has issued, but I can check too. Thank you.
We have a couple, thank you. We have a couple questions on solar and solar permitting, solar projects, RFPs, qualifying groups of contractors. To put a point on that, Ron Novick is asking, do we have examples of municipal solar projects that I can reference in our quest for solar canopies? And just a quick note on solar canopies, because they do sort of overlap with transportation. They're over parking lots. One of the things that PACE did is we're pretty exciting folks at PACE. So we did a study of 8,400 parking lots. We're going to write a coffee table book on parking lots of Connecticut. But kidding aside, if we were to build all the possible solar canopies in Connecticut, we could actually produce about a third of Connecticut's current electrical generation. Just to give you an idea that this is not a small resource we're talking about. I forget, one of you mentioned rights of way, which is another area that we might want to explore. So at the COG level, and I recognize we only have two COGs speaking today, but any examples of municipal solar projects? Is that something that's in your bag of tricks?
So we've tried to aggregate them on our SolSmart webpage. I'm sorry, I posted the long link there. You can also just go to our website /solar and it'll bring you there. We have a couple posted. I know Naugatuck City Hill Middle School did put solar panels up. I know that Southbury did solar panels on their library. That's a relatively small project. I'm also pretty sure, and this is kind of common for towns, Beacon Falls and possibly Waterbury capped their old landfills and put solar panels on top of that. That's another big thing. So I was just trying to frantically Google and find some articles related to those things, but yeah, very good question. And I'll try to put some links in the chat here for examples. And
Elizabeth, in the Capital Region COG, I know that what used to be called Mount Trashmore, which is the municipal the capped recycling dump in Hartford as you go up 91 towards Windsor, that has a giant solar field on top of it. So I think that would be a perfect example of, and I think we clearly will push that from the town level, but the COGs could push it from their level. I'm a big believer in top down stalactites and ground up. That would be us. Meeting columns, if you want to use that sort of a stalactite stalagmite example. Great opportunity for us to just promote the idea. And the same with solar on schools and public buildings. Without calling out any particular town, I'm aware of a small town in Eastern Connecticut that is trying really hard to get solar in their schools, and they haven't heard about it. It's kind of news to that town administration. So I think if they heard it from you, per the earlier point of, I think you have a more trusted voice, let's say, or a bigger voice than we might. That would be really helpful.
Yeah, that's a great point about trying of that successful project that could be used as a model in other communities. So looking at the Hartford landfill, I know Manchester was also looking at doing something similar. And Waterbury, when I was a planner and zoning enforcement officer in Waterbury. And during that time, they were, applying for their permits for the solar field on the landfill. But I don't know if it was ultimately constructed. But that image you had of the goats eating the grass beneath the solar panels, that was one of the images that was presented as a way for a low maintenance mow solution. So
Yeah, there's a whole American Solar Grazing Association, and they promote, agriculture and solar together. It's awesome.
Actually, one of the early PACE webinars, we had somebody from the Finger Lakes in the Hudson Valley come over and talk about that very thing, agrivoltaics, which they snapshotted down to fuzz and buzz. So they have sheep who are fuzzy and buzz, that's electricity. And actually the buzz was they also have pollinator gardens in there. So the sheep keep the ground mowed. It was like a trifecta of solar. Oh boy. Ev Hyatt is telling us that it looks like 80 tractor trailers of garbage leave our state a day. That's a bona fide crisis, isn't it? And I can see Ann Hulick's cat is getting into the act. Let's see. Christine's got a story map about the waste crisis on her website. Let's see. Peter is asking. So yeah, this is Peter Millman's asking from Mansfield, is asking, could COGs help towns hire energy management staff? So this idea, you can take the Wendy Murphy approach to this, which is that the COGs themselves would take on staff someone like that fills your role, Christine. Alternately, or as another way to deal with that would be to say, hey, we talk with you as across towns. This idea of an energy specialist that can pay attention to bills, can understand what grant opportunities might make sense for the town, understands how to think about energy in a productive way. You can hire somebody on staff. I can tell you, and I'll just call Catherine Deviney pays for herself simply by the errors that she finds on bills, let alone access. So either the suggestion would be either take it at the COG level, or help us at the town level to staff up so that we become able to take advantage of these opportunities.
yeah, that's a good suggestion. And I know when we first started talking about this presentation, the webinar here, I raised it to our leadership here at CROG, and thought that there would be an opportunity maybe to could be an opportunity to at least help create some smaller regions. But because the work is so detailed, it would be difficult to hire one person for a region. It's more makes sense to have maybe just a smaller community, one or two municipalities. So, but I like that, just helping to hire the staff person as opposed to staffing the person at the COG level. I guess it depends on each COG and the size of the communities that they're serving, though. So maybe a COG level person might make sense in Northwest Hills, whereas with our denser population and CROG, it might not go as far. But thank you for the suggestion.
Yeah, and we also do shared staff is another thing. So as opposed to having a regional planner, it's someone who, like for instance, in land use, we have a town planner that is housed at the COG and paid by the COG, but works half his time in Beacon Falls and the other half in Seymour as their town planner, because neither town is really big enough to have a full-time town planner. So, you could have an energy coordinator that is paid through the COG and has, instead of, basically working 3 part-time jobs, let's say, for several neighboring towns, has one full-time job, but supports those 3 towns. So certainly a good idea. I hope we got to have the municipal will for it, which is, I know that I keep saying that, but it's a big issue.
No, I think that's exactly it. And on the topic of municipal will, we're at a critical juncture. We're coming to the end here, and oftentimes, and I put my hand up as guilty of this, I leave a webinar and I say, I'm going to go eat lunch, and most of what I've heard falls out of my left ear. I leak from that ear mostly. I want to suggest that we all just make a commitment. You can just commit to ourselves, or if you want, you can commit to me, that we take at least one step, one concrete step, whether it be to reach out to the CTEN, reach out to your COG, agree to find out and attend the next COG meeting, actually open up the recording and the slides and take a look at them, share them at your Clean Energy Commission, your Sustainability Commission. The next time I know that the Councils of Government get together, Ann and Patrice and I sat in on one of those meetings, maybe talk about this presentation. But let's do something. A comment has been made. We have a waste crisis. That's 40 tractor trailer trucks of garbage leaving our state. And God bless Ohio and Pennsylvania for taking it. But if I was them, I'd get sick of that pretty quick. And let's agree to do something. And lots of discussion that we're not going to get to today, but net zero schools. There's some great examples of those. We have Matt Corona in Naugatuck, who I know Matt works on the Eversource Energized Connecticut Heat Pump Consultancy Program. So there's resources out there that we can, at a minimum, we can offer up, that people like Matt can offer up to be dispensed from the COGs, even without a lot of staff burden. So, being reminded that the 40 trucks also, in addition to those, there's trains full of garbage as well. So that's maybe going to become our #1 export in Connecticut. Not what we want to be known for. Well, I'm going to take this opportunity to thank Elizabeth and Chritine. You've been great speakers. It's been actually really great and instructive to work with you. I learned a lot in doing this presentation. Ann and Patrice, thank you for keeping the CTEN Energy Network alive. Thanks for helping us do this presentation. And thanks to everybody who came and spent lunchtime with a bunch of energy and garbage nerds. That takes something.